At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Well, here we are.
Where am I?
I don't know. Everything's a blur after this weekend. Welcome back to Gopher's Workshop. I'm your host, Aaron, and joining me, as always, is begrudgingly Chris.
Are you my dad? Where am I?
It's kind of how I felt this morning. The intro to this podcast was real rough.
Why is the room padded? I didn't do it, I swear.
I can't tell you how many people that came into the top table room that commented on our padded walls. And one of them in particular said, "This room's specifically for you, isn't it, Aaron?" You're right, it is.
They knew you.
So what are we going to talk about today, Chris?
So we just had our GT. I think that's a decent place to start. So our GT went pretty well. We had I think we had like 30 something signups, but after, a few drops and a few no-shows, I think we ended up like mid-20s. No complaints for our first event. First off, we're not going to have it in October next year. We're going to do November because we didn't intend on competing with LVO, but whether it was advertising or actual people, we kind of did. So that's not my plan. So we're going to have that in November next year. That'll alleviate a lot of that. Overall, it went really well. We had enough terrain for everybody. We had enough mats. We had enough, we had some good judges running around. Yep. In addition to myself, we live streamed some of the stuff. It went as good as could be expected, right? We had a ton of prize support, absolutely handed out mountains of nonsense to people. It was a good time. We had one kind of, let's say, issue, and that's going to be addressed for next year. But I mean, the first time you do it, every GT, the first time you do something, there's always something to improve on. I mean, hell, even for like GTs that have been doing this for, years, there's always something you can improve on. So we'll address that. And
the particular issue, it was to be expected to a degree, right? Like, we try to appease the masses.
Well, I don't even know that it's that. There's an argument to, at GTs, you get enough people from all over the place, yep. Right? And when you do, there's bound to be a shithead or two, right?
Yep.
The fact that we only had one, first off, is pretty good.
You're right.
And the fact that the one we had, like, we mitigated some of his issues, like, after we realized that they were an issue, which is unfortunate, but
yep.
We mitigated them reasonably. So I don't know that it's too bad, but again, we'll
tackle it next year, yep. And we'll do better.
I'm intentionally being vague here. I'm not going to call anybody out. That person that created the issue will probably not be invited back next year. I got to do a little, homework before I give them that information, but also it's on its way. There was just a few too many complaints for us to not address it.
Yep. And we've discussed it as a team. We're going to implement some new procedures and things, I think, next year to help alleviate some of the issues that we had arise this year.
Yeah, it was we had a couple of issues, but the reality is the only real issue was slow play, and it was a certain individual who was kind of being aggressive towards other players. Now, obviously, the only way to really address the aggressive towards other players is to directly confront them and say, hey, stop that. There's not a lot we can do about that other than address it at the time, right?
Yep.
So now we know there's a problem player who was a part of a problem team. We know this now. We can kind of keep a better eye on them and mitigate that.
Yep.
The thing that we can do is mitigate the time issue. So we don't necessarily intend on putting everyone on a chess clock. That's just kind of deterring people who are more casual. It's deterring people who that makes them feel nervous. And we want everyone to show up. What we can do is put a clock on the top table.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we plan to do. Because putting a clock on the top table, other than maybe first round with like the randomness of the draws or whatever, the reality is the top table is going to be the more competitive players throughout the course of the event. And they're going to be more comfortable with it. They're going to be the ones that want the clock more. And the majority of people who are in the mid to low tables who don't want the clock, again, other than round one, should be fine to not really ever have to deal with that. So I kind of feel like it's the best of both worlds, and we'll adjust our mission packet and things like that to kind of make that clear for next year.
Yep. Well, and aside from all of that, there's all the bad out of the way. Let's get to the good. We had a lot of positive reactions for the GT. We had a lot of people hyped about not only the prize support, but the play area. Everybody was comfortable. The tables were custom built to be at a comfortable height for you to play. People were complimenting the stools, like the bar stools we had for them to sit on. They were like, actually, they're pretty comfy. It was nice to be able to like swing out and not have to knock into my neighbor. We had adequate spacing for the tables. All around, everybody was in awe of the play space, and they just absolutely loved it.
Yep.
Even on Top's table with the studio, adequate space for each player to move around, adequate space for them to put out like their dead units and like everything. Mm-hmm. We had battle shock tokens on every table. We had all kinds of things for them.
Yep. We supplied battle shock tokens, extra objective markers.
Mm-hmm.
For those who didn't have mission deck, we had mission decks for those guys.
Yep.
I mean, everyone was happy with the terrain. We reset all of the layouts, and I got to be honest, like I was surprised how little people knock them around. Like I explained to everyone at the beginning, hey, we set up the terrain layouts for you. They're probably going to get knocked around in between rounds because people throwing their stuff on the table, this and that. So like double check it, but also we did the thing for you. And then between days, day one and day two, we rearranged all the terrain for them. And kind of with that announcement, I was surprised how much people were like, I don't have to set up terrain. Setting up terrains on the clock. No, I'm going to be really careful I don't mess it up. And they like double checked a couple of things, but just the idea that I was saving them 10 minutes on the clock. Everyone was actually like super respectful of the tables then.
Yeah.
And that worked out great for us.
Yep. And I've been saying this from the get-go with every GT I've gone to. It'd be nice if you set up the terrain for us, because it just feels like such a waste of time to have to do it. And I understand it's
a lot of labor.
It's a first world problem, right?
Yep.
But
well, so also where it gets funny though is like, you're right. That's a lot of labor and that's a lot of time. And not every GT has the manpower to do that per se. What I think is funny about it is it's not that setting up the terrain is a problem. It's specifically that by not setting up the terrain, round one has a different like amount of play time than the other rounds. Like Nova was a great example, right? When I did it a couple of years ago, first round, we had to set up the terrain and we had to set up the templates and all this good stuff. So it took an extra amount of time round one. And I still got my game completed, right? Yep. No complaints. But also I felt more pressured round one because I had to take time setting up the table. By the time you went to round two, unless somebody was kind of a jerk and like messed with the terrain, he was basically already set. So you could just make some minor adjustments and go, right? You like move the objective markers. The templates are basically correct. And then you got to play round 2. So round 2 immediately felt like there was less pressure. This is part of the reason we decided to set up the terrain ourselves ahead of time to try to help out the players and kind of relieve some of that pressure. They're already putting enough pressure on themselves, right?
Yep.
As organizers, we don't need to put pressure on them too.
Yep. And I will say, shout out to Adepticon on that, because when I got to my table, he was already set up, which was great, fantastic, which is something I checked in my box for when we do our events. I wanted to make sure it's happening from now on because it, again, took a lot of pressure off me. I'm sitting here going, God, I really hope my opponent knows how to set up terrain layout 1, because if not, like, we're going to be doing this for like 10 minutes. Yep. Get there, it's already set up. I'm like, great, let's go, let's play.
So that was really good. As you said, everyone was very happy with the terrain we had. Mats. I think we nailed it. Obviously, we can do better, and we will do better next year. But for our first year, as well as us kind of scrambling to get like the train in on time and built and all this other stuff, it went very well.
Yep.
Overall, I think everyone was pretty happy, or at least that's what they were willing to tell me. So,
well, they're willing to tell me more than you, and everybody's pretty happy.
I believe it.
I do want to take a moment though and shout out to all the people that helped us behind the scenes make this GT possible. There's a laundry list of them by name. You know who you are if you're listening to this. Thank you so much, from building the terrain to helping us lay out the terrain, the mats, to
we had some judge help
behind the scenes help with the studio itself, helping set it up, game testing. You know, we had 2 people come in and test about a week prior to make sure the stream stuff was going to be able to adequately hold up. Just all of you who helped behind the scenes to make this GT possible. You're awesome. We love you. And thank you so much, because I'm telling you right now, you took a lot of stress off of us, a lot of work off of our plates.
Yeah, it was super useful. Like we had one of our team guys helped us judge. And I'm super appreciative for him. It meant a lot having an additional judge there. I feel a little bad because he was all about it. Like, yeah, I'm going to help judge. This is going to be great. He went and did Nova with us too. So he's like, I don't even know that I'm going to want to play in it anyway, because like we just got done with Nova. I think it was like round 2. Going into round 2, he's like, man, I want to play. Like, it's just everybody's playing games, and I'm just standing here. God, I want to play.
If we had a longer lunch break, I would have played him up here. Well, all the good out of the way and all the bad. What do we want to focus on?
So here's a thing that I feel like is kind of, whether it's hidden behind the scenes or not really discussed. I was the head judge of the event, and you get a bunch of judge calls throughout the course of a GT, right? Most of them, I don't want to say are obvious, but they're like fairly simple in nature. How does, this work with Overwatch? How does this work with whatever? And that's fairly simple stuff. I don't know that that's needed to go over. However, every GT, because you get all these people from different play groups, you get all these different factions that maybe your local meta normally doesn't have, you end up with a handful of questions that are actually unclear. I want to touch on those. That way, we try to be educational here. So now you can get a whole GT's worth of people interaction boiled down to, here's the things that were like interesting and weird and like don't directly have an answer. How is this going to be handled? That sort of thing. So I want to cover, let's say, at least 2 of those, though I think there were 3. But I also need to start by prefacing how some of this works. As a TO, we have to make our best judgment on how to rule these things, because there are certain things in the game that do not have an explicit answer. You can interpret both ways and you could argue both ways, but as a TO, it's like, which one seems more likely that if GW made a ruling on this, they would go this direction? Or which thing seems more fair to the players which thing seems like more fun to the players. We have to do our best to make a ruling on things that don't have one. As a TO, I took these questions immediately after the event was over, and I sent out some emails trying to get some clarification. In the current day and age, let me try to explain how, I don't want to say how little help we get, but how little clarification TOs are given from GW. TOs work together, and I love them, right? We work together to try to come up with answers ourselves. And a lot of times when we have a consensus on something and it works that way, let's say 9 times out of 10, GW ends up following suit because that's how everyone's playing anyway, right? So like we do have some influence here, I believe. Could be wrong. We could just be guessing at what they would already do anyway correctly enough. Maybe that's what it is. But I started by sending an email to the approved TO programs head because I'm a TO, right? And I tried to word it carefully. Maybe I didn't. Tried to word it carefully to where I said like, hey, as a part of the TO program, what is the TO program view on this? I understand that like GW official may, decide to rule it differently or whatever else, but like I'm trying to get an answer because these players have clearly sent in emails and they don't have an answer yet. So what do we think as TOs? The response I got is, these are like FAQ questions. You should be sending it into the FAQ like email. All right. Well, that doesn't really help, but I then sent it into the FAQ email as a TO. And what's the funniest part to me is I got the exact verbiage that basically said, we're not going to email you back. We're not going to give you an answer personally. Wait and see if we put it in an FAQ, which is kind of the worst. Because not only does this mean that I won't get an answer for potentially months, but also that's if I get an answer at all. What if they decide that like I was the one of 3 guys that asked this question? It wasn't worth them putting the time in. Well, now we just don't get an answer. And these are clearly things that like as a TO, I know the rules well. I know how to research the rules. Yep. I know how to find all the answers. And I'm telling you, they don't have answers on these technically. I think there's like an intended outcome. And I think there's parts of this that make sense. So we don't really need to like stop the whole game until we get the answer. But they don't technically have like an explicit answer.
Yep. I'm going to play devil's advocate with this one until I can't. Sending an email to the head TO, arguably him telling you direct it to the appropriate channels. Well, you know what? And that's fine.
I have no problem.
The head of the TO program, he's got a job, right? He's got to focus on, I got to be the head of all of you guys and get you guys information as and when it comes out, get you meetings. My whole job is to keep you guys organized.
And I have no problem.
And no problems with that, right? Yep. We have none of that. So good job to you. And you've been nailing it so far. However, this is where I have to stop playing devil's advocate, because where is our rules lawyer on the TO board? Where is the guy who goes, cool, I have read the rules, I know the rules, or even a team of people, right? Where is the FAQ people? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Where's the FAQ people specifically dedicated to the TO program? You want us to TO, you want us to rule on things, you want us to do things. I understand all of this. But when we come into issues that we've come into, especially with the GT, these weren't small things. I mean, sure, the game could progress with the rulings that we made, but these weren't just small one-off rare occasions. These were frequented occasions. Some of these rules would happen more than once at a GT.
Yep.
Specifically because of the abilities and the way things were worded.
I think some of the issue I have is, again, the approved TO program. If they're saying, hey, you should send this to the FAQ email because this is how it becomes official. Again, I have no problem with him directing me.
No.
Right.
Good job.
But the issue or the disconnect there is the reason I asked him in the first place is because the proper channel isn't responding well. Right. Their starters, they used to actually send out responses of like, here's our ruling, we'll get it into an FAQ later. Or like, here's our ruling, this seems simple enough, it's not going into an FAQ, but here's the answer. They used to actually directly answer. Now they have this, boilerplate answer that is, we're not going to talk to you. If this is actually a good question, or we determine it's an actually a good question, which they determine by volume, not by quality necessarily, they clearly have put in FAQs that are like obvious. Can you use Overwatch more than once a round if you have this? Like, no, it explicitly says once a round, right? So it's like they've answered questions that seem obvious if you're actually reading the rules, but they decided it was a good question because of the volume of question, not the quality. So in general, this is a failure on the FAQ, like email response. Their lack of timeliness. Again, we have how many different, like as TOs, not just me, but in general, how many more events do we have to run before they even get to an FAQ? So for months, we're going to have no answer when a simple email back to even one of us, we could then disseminate it amongst all the other TOs, right? Which is part of why I was hoping the TO program's head would be like, here's an answer. We can disseminate this amongst the TOs. They'll put it in later. Or here's what we're going to rule for now.
Yeah.
And we will funnel this up the thing. Hopefully the FAQ will like clarify it. Even if FAQ like disagrees with us, here's like a standardized ruling until they rule on it. That's what I was hoping for.
Yep. Well, and again, that would make sense. This is why I say devil's advocate until a point. TO head is doing his job, doing great.
Yep.
Now we're getting failed by the system, and it's simply because we don't have a system in place that allows us to find immediate rulings and assistance for TO on the rulings.
And to be fair, we're saying immediate. We're talking immediate relative to what we're getting now.
Yeah,
right. Like,
absolutely.
I have no problem with the approved TO program getting like 5, let's say like TOs, and we put them on a board. And anytime there's a weird question, the board meets like once a month or something. And here's our rulings on these. These are standardized, go. That seems reasonable.
Yep.
And doing that once a month, which is still a 4-week gap, is still 2 months before we're going to see an FAQ. Best case scenario, sometimes 5 months before we see an FAQ.
Yep. And it also seems
reasonable.
By using TOs, you also keep the game internalized into that aspect, right? You don't have to pull more GW hands from the deck to support this system. No, you're using what's already in place. The TOs are already talking about these things. Just create a board of people that are knowledgeable in the rules and have extensive backgrounds in TOing, and go, cool, you guys make the official ruling for the whole program. Yep. And then give us your answer and I will send it off, or one of you guys can send it off to the FAQ.
Sure. And for the devil's advocate, as we say, I wish they would do this, not just because it benefits the players and the TOs and the game itself, but also you want to argue why would I like put the rulings of the GW's game in someone other than GW's hands? Because GW loves that bottom line, right? It literally saves you on labor. Why are you paying like 4+ employees to do all of this work when you have air quotes free TOs that are literally going to put in way more hours than you are willing to pay any employee to get you the answers? And then now that the TOs have done all the work, we just get to send a little email that says, hey, these were really good questions that don't have direct answers because there's conflicting information. Here's what we ruled on. And even if they overturn us, now they don't have to filter out doing all these analytics for how many people asked about this question, how many people did this. They just be like, yeah, these are good questions. You're right. They don't have direct answers. Those we're going to make sure in the FAQ. And they don't even necessarily have to put any effort in because they could just accept the TO's ruling, which makes even less work. But let's say, if nothing else, we could filter out a bunch of like garbage questions that are like, but you didn't read the paragraph. Like, read your stratagem before you ask me a dumb question, right? Yep. We could filter out all of that so that the FAQs they do put out are not only less work and less money for them, but now they're like more effective.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm going to get off my high horse here. This is just background so that you understand when I'm bringing up these questions. I have attempted to do my due diligence, right? We've attempted to resolve it through official channels. So I'm going to explain the question, explain why it's not clear. And then also I'm going to give you my ruling, and I'm going to give you the ruling of an amount of other TOs, right? Like, I'm not making this ruling because I felt like this. I felt like this is what it should be. These are not why I'm making these choices, right? I'm making these choices based upon here's what me and other TOs think is most fair.
Yep.
This is what me and other TOs think is best for the game. Here's the most logical thing that we could come up with based upon the rulings that are available. That's where we're at.
Well, at this point, I think this is a good point for us to take mid-break.
Absolutely.
And when we come back, what are we going to talk about when we come back?
I've got two big'em questions that we covered. Arguably, there's three, but again, there's two that I think are pretty relevant to the game, and we'll tackle those. One is list building. One is actual rules interaction on the table.
Ooh. All right, so let's head over to our mid-break.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into, from chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
Well, here we are in the middle of the episode. Chris, what's the first thing we gotta do?
Did you just sing to me?
I did.
Patreons.
So we have to thank our patrons, starting with our guardsman patron, Matt's Mini Minute. Little creative little devil you. Next up, we have our White Shield guardsmen, Mitch, Nicodemus, and Tabaris. He said get creative, so I'm a Tabaris.
He said creative, not mumble rap his name.
So thank you to our patrons. We love you. Without you, none of this would be possible. So we love you. But also thank you to our dear listeners, because without you, we wouldn't have a show. So shout out to all yous. That being said, Chris,
I'm going to show you.
What do we got for the little mid-break, eh?
Well, so news in 40K. We've gotten a bunch of things coming out this weekend as far as combat patrols and new characters, and hooray. Also, it's about that time of the year. They announced the battle forces. Good old Christmas time, big boxes. As far as 40K is concerned, there's, was it 6, I think? 1, 2, 7. 7 of them. Overall, I like the battle forces. Boy, howdy, do they feel weird. Okay, so these technically we don't have prices yet. The reality is the prices are probably all the same, regardless of box, right? That's always been true in the past. In addition, they're all going to be a savings, right? You're going to save a real amount of money than if you bought all these individually. Not mad about that. Love that. That's why these are so popular. Also, from a feelsy standpoint, man, one box has 6 models and the other box has 106 models. And how do they feel the same? They don't. They are the same, right? You're getting a savings either way.
Yep.
But also, do you want a billion Kriegsmen for the same price as 7 Tyranids? 6.5 Tau guy? It's weird.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. The 7 Tyranids is also counting the spore mines.
Right. Yep. It's not much. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, these are like, it's a big monster Tyranid box, right? And these are like actually valuable because multiple of these, by the way, have the weird online only bundles, right? So like Tyranids are a good example. The Screamer Killer plus the Nero Tyrant, excuse me. Those are like a bundle box that you only get on the website. Again, value town, happy about this. Also, it's actually like 5 units. That feels so awkward when you go like, again, down to the Krieg box and you're like, there's so many minis. I'm surprised they fit it on the page. It's just like 10-man brick plus 10-man brick plus 5-man brick plus 5-man brick plus 2 big artillery pieces. Also, there's a character. Like, that's a lot of dudes.
That is.
Chaos isn't even like that much less. 10-man brick plus vehicle plus big character plus like 2 big, like powerful units. That's a lot of dude. Let me go up to this tower real quick.
It's
that is
guys and
one big monster. That is 4 data sheets. 4. And one of them is a little 90-point like broadside guy.
Pew, pew.
Again, giant Riptide, but that is not a Satan Shard. That is not a Primarch. Yes, he's a big boy. Yes, he's expensive. This is still value. God, does it feel awkward to get 4 data sheets and one of them's piddly?
Yeah. I think the most awkward out of them all is the one that contains a Primarch.
Okay, so I think this one actually makes a lot of sense. Yes, it's awkward, but the reality is they're like a new faction this year. If they didn't do Emperor's Children, I would kind of be surprised, especially because they were like, it's a new faction this year. For a real amount of this year, they had not one, but many of their box like kits or whatever that were out of stock for months. This makes sense. I'm glad you did a reprint. I'm glad you're going to make this more accessible to people to play that want to play the new faction. I'm not mad about this. Yes, it's a Primarch box. We've had Primarch boxes in the past. I'm not mad about it. It's not impressive per se, right? But also it's not bad.
Well, I'm not saying bad. It's just awkward because you get 2 units and a Primarch.
Sort of. So you get 1 character plus you get the Primarch himself. Then you get a unit of Noise Marines. Love that. Those were out of stock for quite some time. And then you get technically 2 boxes of Flawless Plates. So you're right. It is kind of 1 unit because you could take a max brick. But the reality is you're still getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kits. And of those 5 kits, one of them is a Primarch. Again, if we go back to Tau, you're getting 4 kits in Tau.
Who's the character you're getting?
Isn't that the...
That's 6 Noise Marines and 6 flawless, blah, 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 flawless blades.
You're right. He kind of has his Noise Marine gun off to the side. I just saw the kind of big sword in front of him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were talking about Fulgrim as the character.
3, 4, 5. All right. So I guess there's still 5 kits because it's 2. No, because Noise Marines came in 6, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess it's only
arguably 4 kits.
Well, then I guess at least it matches Tau. They're 4 kits. This is okay. These boxes are a solid theme, right? Like even the Tau. If you're a Tau player, you'll probably remember this. If you're not a Tau player, there was called the Farsight 8, which was like a specialized unit that like each guy was arguably named and he was special. And it was a bunch of crisis suits with a Riptide and a Broadside. And like, this is actually lore kind of interesting because this is like a version of the 8. 6 of the 8, but we're not counting. But like it's fun lore stuff. So like the boxes are decently themed. But you're right. This year specifically, whether it's inflation or whatever you want to call it, these boxes aren't as good of a value as they were last year. That's for certain. Also, maybe they dropped the price. Good luck on that. I don't believe it. They just feel more awkward because, again, you literally have them next to each other with that box has like 50 dudes, 50 actual models. And then this one has like 6. Yeah.
So at any rate, no, we've talked a bunch about these boxes. I think we should let them know that you could arguably request a pre-order through us now.
So this is actually super important, right? They released what's in the boxes now. Also, there's some Spearhead boxes. We didn't really touch on that, or not Spearhead, but AOS.
AOS, yeah.
However, no store has put in numbers yet, their request numbers for these Battle Force boxes. Most stores are probably going to get allocated, right? So you're not even going to get everything you ask for. However, here's what's important. If you want one of these, as much as we like joke about how the Tau box feels weird, it's still value.
Oh,
they
all are.
Right. And there are boxes that are actually a really good deal. Like not just dollars wise, but also feels wise, right? Like the Space Marine it feels like there's a bunch there. The Chaos Space Marine especially, I love that box set. I don't play Chaos, but it's like a really valuable box set. So if you're wanting to do these, like get one of these this Christmas, whether it's one or multiple, please send us an email and tell us what you want. Because if we can better gauge how many people want, it allows us to be a lot more aggressive with our request numbers. Yeah, we're going to get allocated. But if I'm like, I've only had the requests ahead of time for, let's say 10 boxes across all the different versions. Well, then I'm going to request like 20, maybe 25 total. That way, I have some for the shelf. I get my pre-order requests. And even after allocations, I feel like I'm covered. Well, then as soon as they actually go for pre-order, everyone comes out of the woodwork and I didn't order enough. Again, if you give us your numbers ahead of time, we're way more likely to be able to take care of you. And these are a limited print run, right? They are doing one print run and they are done. There are no restocks. There is no reprint coming. You want the savings on these big boxes, you got to get them once. And that once is effectively this Christmas.
Yep. And I want to piggyback on this. Get your numbers in. Send us emails.
Earlier the better.
Earlier the better. I cannot stress that enough. Our email is in the show notes. If you're like, I want a thing, and we do 15% off GW always, all the time.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you reach out? I'm going to get the thing anyway. Why not save yourself some dollars? In addition,
save yourself some headaches.
Save yourself some headaches. Exactly. Right. You save yourself some time and save yourself some energy. Some just bashing your head against the wall trying to figure out how you're going to get this thing.
Yeah. You send me an email now.
We're here for you. Use us.
Yep. You send me an email now. I will do my damnedest to make sure you're taken care of so that you're not during pre-order window scrambling to figure out who still has one left. And this website's gone. My local game store's gone. So I'm going to go over to this place and GW's website's out already of that one. And like every year it happens. Literally every year. The most popular box set gone within an hour. Within an hour. If you were not like, what time do they put it up? What is it? Is that, my time zone, or is that the British time zone, or I don't know. And like, if you're not on top of it, you happen to want the most popular one, it's going to be gone.
Yep.
So again, shoot us an email ahead of time. It'll help us. In helping us, we get to help you. Savings on top of savings, because in addition to the box set being a good deal, also we're offering the 15% discount on top of that deal.
You're right. It's almost like we like you so much that we will take your headaches.
I mean, I'm going to keep passing my headaches on to Aaron, but That's because
I don't feel pain.
Giving me a headache.
All right. So that being said, I think we've beat this horse into the ground. Is there anything else you want to cover this mid-break?
I think that's the main thing. Obviously, we'll have pre-orders going up every week. So if you want the pre-orders when you're listening to this for Iron Hands, White Scars, Harlequins, check out our website. We've got them up
stuff
too.
As well. If it's GW, we do it.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. We don't focus too much on AOS stuff in the mid-breaks because it's a GW 40K Tactics podcast here. So we're trying to stay focused on what we're actually talking about.
But we have all of GW available
all
to
of
us. I've actually had a lot of special requests lately for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Again,
we got it.
If GW has it in stock, I can get it for you. I'll get you a discount on it.
Yep.
Just let me know.
Well, that being said, we've already mentioned it a bunch of times, but I'm going to say one more time for you. You can head on over to our website at gophermafia.com. Save yourself a bucket of dollars. We have 15% off GW all the time, always, all year round. Doesn't matter if we have to special order it for you. We do the thing. In addition to that, we do crazy discounts on all kinds of other game systems and companies like Modifius with the Fallout Factions line, Battletech from Catalyst, you name it. If we can discount it, we do. So go check out our website, gophermafia.com, and get yourself some deals on all the things you already love to play. That being said, I think that's it for our mid-break. All right, let's head to the last part of our episode. Well, here we are at the last part of the episode, Chris. Tell me about these rules.
So we had a few different rules that kind of showed up, let's say, as far as they didn't have clear rulings and I had to make a ruling on them. And not only did I do some research, like at the time of, because I kind of know what to look up and where to find the information. After I was able to confirm that there isn't a direct answer, I went back later after the event and kind of double checked. So I'm fairly confident in saying there's no explicitly correct answer here. So when I explain the rules and when I explain my ruling, to be clear, whatever your local TO says at their event is the thing that goes, right? Because it is ambiguous enough that it could be argued both ways. That being said, I am confident in my decision, not only in the what makes sense to me as far as the rules available, what makes sense to other TOs, because I've tried to talk to some of the others about how do they rule it. But also, again, I've tried to contact GW in multiple avenues, and hopefully in contacting them, they will update their next FAQ and this will all be resolved. But as of right now, there's no correct answer. So the first one is about fights on death.
Mm-hmm.
So for fights on death, there's some confusing information, right? When a model fights on death, and we're going to include that there's a character attached, while the unit has a character, it has the rules from the character, and the character has the rules from the unit. When the unit fights on death, there's some interesting wording about the model counts as being destroyed, but you don't remove it yet. After the model fights, then you remove the model. But there's a specific thing that talks about fights on death. When the model is fighting via its fights on death, it does count as being destroyed for the purposes of starting strength below half, things like that, right? So if it's literally the first model that died and then it fights on death, the unit is below starting strength, so maybe it gains a benefit. But the model's still there. So when it goes to fight on death, it says it's fighting as if selected to fight, which means it piles in. It has to determine engagement range, which means you can't pull from the back. This is a very common mistake I see people do, is they'll just like, oh, nope, two of my guys get to fight, and then they fight, and then they pull from the back. Those guys never could have made engagement range. You're pulling the wrong models. But that's not actually the ruling that we have the issue with here. That's just a common mistake. The issue with the ruling is Because the model counts as destroyed, some other events have argued that those models are no longer a part of the unit. So when they go to pile in, that would indicate they no longer care about unit coherency, which is, I think, objectively not true via the rulings that are available. But the real argument here is whether or not the character counts as being in the unit. So like when the model fights on death, do you gain the while leading +1 to hit, or while leading, reroll to wounds, or something like that? My ruling and my argument is that it is still, it's like simultaneous, right? It's like rolling a power fist versus rolling the chainswords in the unit. You're all rolling at the same time. This is a big, long discussion about you are interrupting their fight, because the fights on death happens before they're allowed to consolidate. That's a very big deal. This indicates to me that it's all like simultaneous, right? It's all happening at the same time. Because it's all happening at the same time, you should still gain the benefits of the character. And vice versa, right? So if you like precision out the character, you should still have the benefits of the unit says, I get to re-roll to hits if they're on an objective. You should still get that, because when you go to fight on death, it talks about piling in, which means it's indicating it still cares about engagement range. It still cares about unit coherency, because you do not remove the model. The model is still there. It is still real and relevant to the unit. Counts as destroyed. Keyword counts as destroyed, but you leave it there. You pile in appropriately. You care about unit coherency. You determine engagement range. You care about, because you care about coherency, I think you care about what characters attach to that unit, what, rules do the unit and the character have combined after you finish resolving your attacks, because this is all simultaneous with their attacks. Now you remove the models. Now we change steps, which is to say you go to the consolidate step for the attacking unit. And then it's like no longer simultaneous. If the character died due to precision, now the unit would lose those abilities. Mm-hmm. I think this is all very logical. I think this all makes sense and is the correct ruling. However, the reason this is somewhat confusing, even though I think it's very clear to me, is because there is some weird verbiage, right? Model counts as being destroyed, but don't remove the model. Well, now, is it still a part of the unit because it's already destroyed? Does it not? Like, again, it's a little confusing, and arguably there is no clear-cut answer from GW clarifying this, but there is enough in the verbiage of like fight on death says you pile in and consolidate, or you care about engagement range still. You don't remove the models, so you're still caring about unit coherency, things like that. I think it's clear enough that this ruling is correct objectively, but I will objectively say GW is not clarified one way or the other, and there is enough wiggle room to argue against it. So we ruled, while fighting on death, Karn and Berserkers, they get to both benefit from each other during the fight on death. I think that all makes sense and is correct. So that's the kind of first big one we had.
Okay. I've got nothing to say on that one. It sounds pretty straightforward and to the point for me.
Yep. And part of what makes this clear is I've already done a bunch of research on both fight on death and then also like all the things related to it when it comes to allocating attacks in melee and engagement range, consolidation, unit coherency, etc. So I boiled it down to the important bits, and this is why I think it's correct. But again, check with your actual TOs. They may have a different perspective on it, because again, destroyed is a somewhat undefined term in this scenario because it is destroyed, but you haven't removed the model. Anywho, moving on. This next one is going to be a, let's say, list building question. And this gets a little more in depth. So, over the last several months, we have gotten new detachments.
We have.
Hooray. Mostly for Marines, but also some other stuff. in relation to Marines, there is some confusion. Well, I shouldn't say confusion. There's some argument, let's say, about whether or not these new detachments count as Codex detachments.
Hey there, everybody. It's Aaron. I'm interrupting the show to let you know that what you're about to hear about Space Marines and Oath already came out. You're right. We're late. We recorded this episode literally the day before they announced what was happening with Oath. So that being said, we hope you enjoy what our thoughts were prior to when they announced it.
The reason this matters is Oath of the Moment says you get to reroll the hit. Sounds great. Also, it says if you're a Codex detachment specifically, and also don't have X keywords, which is certain chapters, you get +1 to wound. Well, there was an FAQ clarifying this, and that FAQ did clarify what were considered Codex detachments. That clarification happened 8 months ago. It happened before we got a bunch of these detachments. So now that we're getting these new detachments and we haven't seen an updated FAQ, again, GW is not fast, do they get the +1 to wound? I think the answer is yes. They get the +1 to wound. And there are so many reasons why I think that has to be the case. It's ambiguous enough. They are technically not listed on the FAQ. So while the intent may be that they get the +1 to wound, your local TO could very easily say, there is a list. While the list is outdated, this is the list. Hard and fast rule. You don't get it because you're not on the list. I acknowledge that is a ruling that could happen. And I'm not even saying that's like an inappropriate ruling. I don't think that's the intent at all. But that is an acceptable ruling. As far as why it should be intended to get the +1 to wound, and I think should get the +1 to wound, is because the main argument against it, besides not being on the list, is that these new detachments are restricted to a specific faction. I understand, but also I don't think that works. And here's my list of reasons why. If the argument is it was based upon the detachment, whether or not you get +1 to wound, and not the faction or sub-faction, I should say, then why would they restrict, let's say, Space Wolves or Dark Angels from getting the +1 to wound if they used one of the listed detachments, like the core Codex detachments? So if I played Dark Angels and played Gladius, I should get the +1 to wound. The main balancing factor of taking away the +1 to wound is not the detachment itself. It is the faction, sub-faction, and saying you're playing Imperial Fists. You have only two special data sheets. You need a little help because you get a +1 to wound. That makes sense. No one's arguing. Now we go over to Space Wolves playing the same exact detachment as Imperial Fist. And we say, you have like 20 data sheets. You don't need the help.
You're right.
First off, I'm still upset at Space Wolves. They could use the help. Also,
according to the data sheets.
Right. But again, this is a fair argument, right? Like the number of options that Imperial Fists or Salamanders or Raven Guard or White Scars, because we're getting the new Combat Patrol, right?
Yep.
The number of unique data sheets they have is like 1 or 2. Saying they could use a little help to balance them out for the factions that have 15, 20, 25 data sheets unique to them only. They have way more options, way more combos, way more things that they could do to answer whatever their opponent's doing. That's a logical argument. Thus, step 1 of these unique detachments, yes, they're restricted to Raven Guard or Salamanders. They should still be getting the +1 to wound because they only have 2 data sheets. They don't have the same options as everyone else. Okay. Going further down the line, looking at these specific detachments, I have heard, people argue these detachments are really good. They're really powerful. No argument. I love them, right? They're great. Are they really that different from the thing they're air quotes replacing?
No.
Forge Father is like a great example, right? Forge Father and Firestorm. You know how different they are?
It's not by much.
Like one enhancement and like one stratagem and one ability that only applies if you take Vulcan. Okay. Well, for starters, that ability that you get if you take Vulcan, first off, it objectively has a cost. It's not that you weren't going to take Vulcan, you were, but there is like a cost, right? Of you have to objectively take this data sheet for Vulcan.
Yep.
And then you also, it only applies to this data sheet, is relevant. Okay. There's points cost involved.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, you are giving an ability to Infernus guys to increase their like speed effectively so that they could move faster and still shoot, or move faster and still do an action. Well, that's great. But also, you know what's cheaper than a 5-man Infernus? A 5-man Intercessor that has sticky. Like a 3-man, like you want to go even faster. How about a 3-man Suppressor? Why do you care about D6 plus or 6 plus a D6 in order to be able to shoot after advancing, or be able to, do an action after advancing? You could just flat move 12 and do the action on the center objective. No advance required. And it's cheaper.
And there's no chance.
Right? It's guaranteed 12. Immediately, there are examples of how that rule is good, but also that rule is not crazy. It's not game breaking.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's go to the enhancements. First off, 3 out of 4, identical. Okay. So you have one that's slightly different. Are you telling me that enhancement is so friggin' powerful that you have to take a +1 to wound away from the whole faction? There ain't no way. Again, there's changes to the stratagems, right? So like there's a minor change there. All right. One objectively gets switched out. It's different now. There's another one that I think has a minor wording change. But like, again, we're talking about 3 things that individually are extremely minor and collectively are only good enough to say that if you're playing Salamanders, you should be playing this. That's it. It's only barely good enough to convince Salamander players to not play Firestorm anymore. Look at these minor benefits that you get. It is still plus a number. Maybe it's only like 0.2, right? But it's still plus. Everyone else, and this is like the main thing I want to point out. If you were any other faction other than Salamanders, the fact that you don't get access to Forge Father is almost irrelevant. If I'm playing Ultramarines, it turns out Firestorm is still top 3 detachment. Love that thing. It's just an objectively good detachment. And the benefits I get from going to Forge Father are almost irrelevant, right? I give up the ability to advance in action my Infernus guys. Okay, but I'm playing Ultramarine, so I was already going to get double oath, and they auto hit, so I didn't really probably want to put Infernus guys in my list anyway. So fuck it, give Ultramarines Forge Father. Why? Because they're not even going to take Infernus. They're just going to take like aggressors, so that at least like they get to reroll to hit on Power Fist with their double oath. It's like the benefits are so minor, it makes no sense why they would lose the +1 to wound. So we can switch over to, I can give a bunch more examples there. And if you need me to, I will. But we can switch over to the Raven Guard one. Again, the Raven Guard one, everyone is losing their mind right now. It's so powerful. It's so good. This is amazing. We need to boil down why it's good, because people are getting lost in the woods as far as like why this is powerful. Don't get me wrong. It is good. I'm not complaining. But why is it good? If we just say the detachment's so crazy, this is the example why you should lose the +1 to wound. If you lose the +1 to wound, what's going to happen is the identical list that Raven Guard is playing right now will just switch over to Vanguard because it's almost identical, and it'll barely change. It's not the detachment that's the problem. Again, you're gaining a minor benefit if you have specifically this character. So he has to stay alive and he's unique. So now it's a single model that not only you have to take, but has to not die. And his rules encourage them to be like kind of aggressive. Okay. So you have this single model that has to not die. And if you do that, you pseudo get a CP every turn. But that CP can only go to this one specific stratagem. Don't get me wrong, stratagem's good. Uppy downy's great. But also, it's a CP that has to go to a specific stratagem. It does not allow you to do the stratagem multiple times. So it's not like you're actually getting more of Uppy Downy than you would otherwise. You know what existed in Vanguard? The identical Uppy Downy strat with a different name. It's not like it's something new. It's
and
just
you
cheaper.
had the ability to get free CP using that with specific models anyway.
Sure. If you could, again, you take this model, he has to stay alive. It is somewhat, again, marginally more powerful because you could take a captain, you could reduce its cost. In this scenario, you have this character that could stack on top of the captain ability because you could have another captain also reducing the cost of something else. Again, it is better.
Yeah.
No argument. But also we're talking about so marginally better that, again, if you could literally remove this whole detachment from the game tomorrow. Just lose your mind like we did on Daka detachment, right? Nerf it into the ground. You are going to see an almost identical list for Raven Guard. Switch over to Vanguard because they lose next to no tools. And then what's changed? Again, you have one change in a single enhancement. The other three are identical. Same points, same wording, same everything. One enhancement changed. And that enhancement's good. It is arguably better than the thing you lost. Okay. All right. So that's more powerful. Again, is that thing more powerful than +1 to wound army-wide? I'll tell you right now, every Raven Guard player would give up that enhancement right now in order to not lose +1 to wound. Okay. So then you go to stratagems. One is different. Is it really that like crazy to say, no, look how good Raven Guard is doing. This new thing is crazy. It's so powerful. It needs to be nerfed. And the reality is you could strip the entire detachment away and the meta changes none.
I can sum all this up for both of these arguments very simply by saying you just haven't had enough time as a player to fight this thing.
Yep.
It all comes down to the same reason we got anxious to nerf Daka. And you know how many people have come to us after the fact that Daka got nerfed and said flat out, I don't think Daka actually needed to get nerfed. Not as hard as it did.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that basically said don't give, or the one stratagem can't target grot units anymore.
Yep.
Like that was it. That was the only thing that people were like, you know what, that made a lot of sense. I think that's fair.
Yep.
But
everything else, they lost their minds on. They were like, this is ridiculous. You basically nerfed it to the ground. Here's the problem, internet. You keep throwing your arms up and saying, oh my gosh, this is so broken. But yet you haven't. This detachment has been out for what, 2-3 weeks?
Less than a month.
The new Forge Father detachment has only been out for maybe 2 months.
But see, that's what I think is hilarious, is because arguably the Forge Father detachment, people aren't really complaining about.
No.
But also, again, it's the same thing. Raven Guard came out and now people are losing their minds.
I'm telling you right now.
Is it the detachments are so objectively better we have to strip away the +1 to wound? Or is it something else?
Yeah.
But also to say that like the detachment's the problem, we have to strip away +1 to wound. To me, I cannot find the logic. The only logic is rule lawyering. It's that it's not on the list. There is a list of these get +1 to wound, the rest don't. And if you strictly stick to that, I understand your logic. And while I don't agree with it, because I don't think that's the intent, I at least understand where you're coming from. But from a game balance perspective, I cannot find a single thing in any one of these detachments. We even got the new, the first company detachment, whatever it was called now. That one got updated for Imperial Fists. And you know what? It's way better than the thing it replaced. It's still less takeable than generic Forgefather, than generic Vanguard, than generic Outrider, the Storm Lance detachment. Like, still less playable than that. But also, you're going to tell me that it's so powerful we got to strip +1 to wound away from it? I don't think so. There ain't no chance that we're going to argue that one, right? And no one is arguing that one. But we're nitpicking about, but Raven Guard are doing good. And if I only look at the internet and I go on Reddit and see who won the last 3 GTs, well, okay, there's Raven Guard showed up like twice in the last 3. It must be too powerful. We got to nerf it. It's the new
thing. This is the problem. Everybody needs to take a step back and realize it's the new cool. And we don't know how to deal with it.
There are totally lists. Just absolutely. They're so powerful. You get to put zero thought into it. Just go. And the game will work out in your favor. And those need to be nerfed. Yep. We've had them this edition. They had to be nerfed. No complaints. Also, to say that like, well, no, I played against the new Raven Guard and I lost. It's pretty powerful. Okay, but pretty powerful, like, we need to get some extra practice in and figure out the answer, or pretty powerful, like it needs to be nerfed. Because right now people are up in arms about like, oh, I shouldn't get the +1 wound. It's too good with that. You have to take that away. So they're effectively saying nerf it and nerf it in the way that I want, because that makes sense to me. Or we could acknowledge like, hey, do you know how minor of a change you would have to make? Like, you're playing literally any Marines. I don't care what it is you're playing. Going into Raven Guard, I see that you have a scout unit. Well, it turns out if we make some minor adjustments and we turn that into an infiltrator unit, well, now their 6-inch deep strike gets turned off from the 6, brick of Inceptors, and also the other 2 3-man bricks of Inceptors. And now, like, man, it seems like you really countered them for a whole 30 points. Maybe not entirely, but like a real amount.
I can do you one better. Let's go ahead and nerf Raven Guard. Let's get rid of their +1 to wound. Great. Now I'm just going to take chaplains in my entire list, because I'm usually using jump boys anyway. So I've got 3 chaplains. Guess what? My +1 to wound's back. It's the same argument we made with the Blood Angels all that long ago of, well, they took our +1 away. Guess what? I didn't care. I'm still getting it anyway. I've got Lance. I've got my jump back chaplains. I've got my chaplains on bike. I can get my +1 back anyway. If I really wanted it, I could get it back. Yeah, it's the same argument with the Raven Guard. Right. You're not going to be able to nerf this in a way that you think it's going to make it's going to make this list playable again. It's make it fair game.
Well, see, but
you're going to get the +1 anyway.
That's a solid example though, right? Because like giving a chaplain is effectively nerfing it in a significant way. But how is it nerfing it? Well, we now have a character tax. I already had a character in there. It was Shrike. Okay, cool. So what you're actually saying is you're preventing Shrike from getting the +1 to wound.
Yeah.
So like, was it the +1 to wound, or was it Shrike is maybe a little too cheap, or the new Athan model is again is in every list because the detachment says he has to be. So is it the detachment's fault, or is he actually like maybe a little too cheap?
And this brings me around to my next point of, if it does need nerfed, maybe it's the character tax that needs to be nerfed, not the +1 to wound, right? Because I'm going to get it anyway.
But if we're the internet, right? Look at me, I'm Reddit. We're not arguing Raven Guard need a points change. Why? No. Because that points change would affect all the other Marines that aren't actually anywhere near as good as the perceived version of Raven Guard right now. So we're going to nerf the detachments because I think that's specific to Raven Guard, even though we all acknowledge that like the Imperial Fist one is still kind of bad and the Forgefather one is totally fine with it. Why? How did we get attached to we have to remove the +1 to wound? The answer is, does Raven Guard need a nerf? Sure, maybe. But we're talking about like, let's make the named characters go up like 10 points each. And maybe we like adjust the Vanguard vets because they just dropped not that long ago. Maybe we take them from 95 points up to 100. Is 5 points a lot? No. But since we're taking like 2 or 3 units of them, that combined with another 10 points in each character, man, I think I have to drop one of my like Inceptor units down from a 120 point brick to something a little cheaper because I can't afford it anymore. Again, there are plenty of ways to fix this if it needs fixed at all.
Yep.
You know, the best way to fix this whole thing? Their opponents start making choices. Just like when they said Chaos Knights were crazy and it's going to be the new meta and Death Guard is crazy even after like, you know what we did? We adjusted our lists slightly. We included a little extra Melta and it solved all of our problems. And now we're back to almost an elitist meta. Why can't we just adjust our list slightly and solve the problem instead of having to ban someone's new cool thing or instead of complaining about how it's unfair that they have this thing? And this is all, we can slightly go on to a third topic here. This is all ignoring the fact that while people are up in arms on the internet about how Space Marines are crazy all of a sudden, it's not fair. LVO happened this last weekend. You know what won LVO? Guard spam. It was just a Horde list. And I will totally acknowledge right now, Horde is not in a great place. But
you know what? You know why it is a great place right now? Because we're all building our lists to deal with toughness spam.
And to some degree, depending on your local meta, to some degree, we are actually shifting back to being able to deal with it better because we've already started to shift back to an elitist meta. And dealing with elitists is better at dealing with Horde than tank busting, right? Okay, I totally accept that. Yep. The thing that's crazy to me is most people, including the people at LVO talking about the game they were watching, kept basically saying it was strictly a math game. They didn't have enough bullets. I watched a game where it was Death Watch. They've got bullets against them. And you know what? Death Watch still lost. But you know why they lost? It wasn't because they didn't have enough bullets. It's because the Horde player, he was a skilled player. He made the right choices. He countered. He didn't just throw bodies out there and say, I have more OC than you. Good luck. No, you're T3 bodies. You will fall the fuck over. He made good choices about, I'm going to overextend this unit because it's going to get him to overextend. And then I can actually kill something when he gets out of cover. And I'm going to have these guys behind the building because I know that unit's going to die, but I need to do the action. And then next turn, I'll be able to out OC them with this other unit. Like there was multiple points in the game where I watched it and it was a 3-on-1 matchup on every objective. It was 3 guard units that were basically dogpiling a single Death Watch unit. No wonder he got the objective. It's not even about OC. It's about when there's 3 units, they're probably able to do a real amount of damage to neuter the Death Watch.
Yep.
1 unit of Death Watch absolutely obliterates 1 of the 3 units of guard and then still loses the objective. Again, guard player made good choices. It's not because he had so many models, the opponents didn't have enough dice. It's not like this whole game, I've said it many times, is more balanced than anyone wants to give it credit for.
Yep.
And you know what the defining factor between balanced and competitive balanced is? Player choice.
It's you.
That's it. It's player choice every time. Yes, there are units that are less efficient than others. Yes, there are units that are like actually really powerful. But I will tell you right now, me today, I don't even care. You build me a list. You tell me how the list is garbage and I will play your competitive list right now. And I'm not saying I'm going to win, But before the game, you and everyone else is going to tell me like, oh man, if you get more than 25 points, you're going to have a good fucking game. Your list is trash. And you know what happens? I'm still going to get over 50 points. I'm going to get that 51 points. You know why? Because I'm try real hard and I'm going to make good choices. And that 51 points, we're in the European meta where they use differential. That's really fucking important. Again, I'm not saying that I'm the best player. I'm not saying that things don't need adjustments and nerfs and, buffs and whatever else. I'm on board with all this. But also, for so many people on the internet to just decide this is too powerful, it has to be nerfed, I'm upset about it until it gets corrected. How about we correct our own play first? That's going to be the correct answer 100% of the time.
You're right.
I know I'm sounding a little like aggressive about this, but it's because most of the times, for example, the previous rules thing that we talked about with like the interaction with characters and stuff like that, most of the time when you have these issues, people are like, I'm pretty sure it works this way, but I'm looking for confirmation, or I don't know how this works. Can you help me figure it out? It's all about we're trying to learn together and do the things together. Every time, I don't care if it's DACA detachment or whatever else, when people start talking about balance, people are so opinionated that they're never trying to work together to figure out, but what's best so that everyone's having fun playing. No one's working together about what's best for the balance of the game. The only thing they want to talk about is how they know this is wrong and it has to be fixed, and I know the answer. How do we work together so well on these kind of terribly written rules, but the minute it comes to balance, we no longer want to work together and we just decide we know the answer?
I don't even think that's the issue. I think a lot of players don't want to admit that they're not as good as they once thought they were. And it's not to say that they're bad, right? We got some of the best players in the factions that are even shouting and going, this needs to be fixed. Sometimes we don't want to humble ourselves and go, maybe I'm just not good at this one thing. Maybe I need to practice. Maybe I need to put in a little bit more work. I think the big problem when it comes to balance in this game is we don't first humble ourselves before we question the integrity of the balance.
And I'm going to use you as an example. It's not even necessarily about like strictly humbling we need to humble ourselves, but also sometimes it's about reality checking each other without arguing, right? You, as an example, when you started playing and you started like getting better, there was a very distinct period of time where you were like, when you were talking it out, you were just, oh yeah, absolutely, I crushed that unit and I do this and doing that. And you were being completely unrealistic about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And you had to have a third party, like reality check you really hard about like, that's not true, man. I know you believe in your units, you believe in your dice, and I love that, but that's not realistic. That's not the averages in any way. And then after you got that reality check, you're much better about it now, right?
Yes.
But like, that's got to happen. And the part that's different is it's not just about like reality checking each other, right? Like I could absolutely go up to someone and be like, you're dumb. That's not how that works at all. But that's not useful.
No.
The important part is when you're reality checked, again, be just humble enough to be like, he's reality checking me. Maybe he's wrong, but also before I start an argument and start fighting about it and telling him how he's wrong, maybe I should look into this. Maybe I should try what he's saying. Maybe I should determine whether or not I could be doing better.
Well, you know what the reality check was for me in that moment? It wasn't even the fact that you told me that's not how that works. It was the fact that you looked at me and you flat out said, you don't understand their units enough to make that argument. And that was the reality check of, no, you're right. I know my units better than anyone else because I've taken the time to practice it, earn it. But this is the reality check of, because I spent so much time learning my thing, I don't know everything about theirs. So you know what? You're right. I can't give a valid argument. So you know what I did for the next 3 months after that? I learned everybody else's factions. I'm not going to play it.
Tried to.
Yeah. I tried to. Yeah. I didn't perfect everybody else's stuff, right? But I did go, cool. What is your Death Guard unit? Your bodyguard unit? No,
that's right.
Yeah, bodyguard. Yeah, what is your bodyguard unit compared to in my Blood Angels faction? Basically Terminators. All right. You're a little different, but you're basically Terminators in a scale of toughness and wounds. All right, cool. So maybe my jump pack guys don't do as much damage as I thought, because I don't have enough chainsword to get through that.
Yeah.
Or maybe my Sanguinary Guard isn't tough enough. Yeah, I know I'm doing 2 damage for every swing, but I don't think that's enough to get through 3-4 wounds on a body. Plus you got a 4 up. You get all these things going on. At this point, I was able to effectively evaluate units by comparing them to what I have. So now when I touch the board and I go, cool, I'm fighting Necrons, I can look and go, okay, your warriors, they're basically scouts. However, you have an ability to bring them back. So they're scouts with a few more wounds. So I got to be able to do enough to cripple that unit. Okay. Or maybe I just lock that unit down so it doesn't move. Okay. Your Cryptex. Okay. What are they equal to? This is the thing. Balance it out. Look at it. But it all brought me back to that humbling moment of, you don't know enough about this game to make those decisions. You know your stuff and nobody's arguing that. But you don't know enough about everybody else's to make these decisions. And that is what I'm talking about when it comes to humbling. That exact moment. Everybody needs to have that. You don't know enough about this game or this faction to make these arguments yet.
And we all love the idea of like, no, I've been playing for years. I know all about that. Like, I've been playing since the first week of 10th edition, right? Like, we all love the idea that like, I know 40K.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, yeah, I know 40K. And do you know how often, like, look at our meta right now, right?
Yeah.
So we had a Thousand Suns player show up and stick around, like not just show up for like a tournament, but show up and stick around and get multiple games in. And every person he played against the first time, he hard won, because nobody really knew what Thousand Suns did. It's not like they're new or special or whatever else. Even if you look on the internet, they'll tell you they're decent, right? But these people hadn't played against them. So while they're very good players, even one of our best players hard lost to Thousand Suns because like, I totally underestimated how much AP that all their guns have. I totally underestimated how much damage you get out of Doombolt every turn and things like that. Those same players, they go to play him another time, right? And now it's the second time they've played and they're already doing better. By the third time they're playing him, well, now it's showing that this player is really good. And also the Thousand Suns player is good, but maybe he's not as good as this other player, but he no longer has the surprise factor. So now it's like a way closer game. Nothing changed. Nothing from the first game to the third game. 0 things changed for points, for rules, for lists between both of them. But you know what did change? The players. And again, if that's true, in this tiny local meta with a single faction that barely shows up except for at tournaments, now it's here for real. You're telling me across the whole like internet, yeah, all the factions are represented. But if we look at each person who's saying, yeah, this is crazy and that's crazy and this is crazy, do those 3 people that have drowned out the rest of the people, have they actually had experience with it? Or did the first one have experience, maybe got a little too opinionated, and then other people jumped on board
after one match?
Like, that's exactly what happened with DACA. There was a few people who got on real playtesting and they said, man, this is really strong. They didn't say it was broken. They said, this is really strong. This is going to be crazy because people are going to underestimate orcs and they're going to make bad positioning choices because now orcs actually get to shoot. And then there was a giant laundry list of people behind them that read that review from those like handful of people and said, you're right, this is crazy, it's got to get nerfed. And then all those people who didn't have the experience, they were the ones that convinced the whole world DACA was a problem.
Yep. Right. I think we've beat this horse into the ground. The answer is think before you leap. That's just all you got. That's the whole takeaway from this last part of this episode. Think before you leap. Think about everything you're about to say before you say it, because GW is listening, and your opinions could arguably make for a bad day in the meta. Reminder of DACA. We will never forget DACA.
Well, and okay, here's we'll call it a hot take, but an honest opinion that I have. I really try not to give out too many of my like kind of wild opinions. I try to stick mostly to facts and point out facts that people like overlook. But here's an honest opinion of mine that I think is more true than, again, we want to admit. A majority, and I don't mean like 51%, I mean like big number majority of the points adjustments that GW does across the board are based upon people's feedback and feelings, not based upon what's balanced or what's best for the game. Now, some of them, again, there are things that are clearly egregiously good or egregiously bad, but it seems very odd to me how many things that have been basically not taken, like this whole damn edition, and they've never gotten a points decrease. Why? Because no one said anything about them because they're not playing them. But you know the things that people do bitch about that are about like, this used to be takeable and now you upped its points and now it's untakeable. They seem to be affected and drop back down. The things that people say like, no, this unit's crazy, it's so powerful. Those things go up in points. So it turns out, with some exception, almost every points adjustment that GW puts out is based upon the feedback that we give them, not based upon them trying to find balance in the game. It's about them trying to appease us. And if we get up in arms and totally lose our mind over something that we don't have the information on, we are the ones making the game worse.
Well, that being said, you got anything else for this episode, Chris?
Nope. I hope you all enjoyed. We should be having the Drukhari Codex review coming up, which is going to be the last one of the edition, I believe. I think we've got them all now.
I don't know. Space Marine 2.0.
You're right. Maybe. Also, there's, we got the Harlequin Combat Patrol. If you really want to go crazy rumor engine, then maybe they get their own thing. They won't. But who knows? Maybe we'll get a brand new faction. I mean, we already got one this edition, but maybe we'll get another one. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe the Emperor will be playable on the table.
No, he will not.
Anyway,
if they make the Emperor playable, this game's doomed. All right, now I'm gonna become Redditor. All right, the Emperor comes back. This game's fucking over. It's unplayable garbage.
It's unplayable garbage. The Emperor's terrible. Well, on that note, thank you all for listening. Tune in next week. Hey, everybody, it's Aaron. I want to thank you again for tuning in for this episode of Gopher's Workshop with us, hanging out and listening. Remember, leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you think. And if you feel like supporting us, you can always go to Patreon in the show notes below. Thanks. Till next time.